share today. One is a set of books called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. These are fun books with little short stories. So the format is short story narratives, and they're really written for anybody from second grade on. They're somewhat scary, all of course fictitious, but depending on the maturity of the kid, I know our children started reading them and enjoying them in second grade and liked listening to them. The authors and what makes this appropriate for middle childhood, second grade is about 7 to 8 years old, is really about the fact that kids are in the concrete stage of their development, according to Piaget, but yet they're expanding just enough that they know what's real, but they're still innocent enough and don't know necessarily what to totally believe, especially of the afterlife, that scary element becomes a safe place to play with, of course, in a very muted way. Another great example is Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. These are hysterical poems, if you've never read any Shel Silverstein, that really play on childhood love and innocence, as well as funny feelings, such as not always loving that little sister or brother, or what happens when the dog really does eat your homework. Again, it's appropriate in his humor because of the child's development of their concrete cognitive skills, as according to Piaget, but also because of their general knowledge of the world and their better understanding of pragmatics. In our textbook, it talks about on page 308, I'm looking at my notes like I would want you to use when you did this, on page 308, that children in middle childhood really start to begin to understand irony and sarcasm. A lot of a child's understanding of irony and sarcasm is going to be dependent upon their exposure to that with adults. And not just adults being sarcastic in a mean way, of course, but adults teaching kids and really using those kinds of expressions around children that might show sarcasm or playing with language. So one of Shel Silverstein's poems I'm actually going to read. It's called Fish. The little fish eats the tiny fish. The big fish eats the little fish. So only the biggest fish get fat. Do you know any folks like that? So it's a play on language because he's using fish. It's metaphorical. It's using symbolism, but yet he's getting at a very big concept. Dr. Seuss is like this as well. So a preschooler might read Shel Silverstein and find some of it funny, but they're really not going to get the level of humor. And a second grader will read Shel Silverstein and enjoy it at a much different level than what your fifth graders and even into middle school, which is adolescence, will enjoy and appreciate. So he builds on the pragmatics, the metacognition, the ability to think about thinking, and your concrete skills. And last but not least is more of a coffee table picture book called Dream Big Dreams. And this book has photographs of President Obama's time in the White House. And he takes pictures and little descriptions, and sometimes they include children. And it's really about empowering kids to think about what they can do and to think big, and that anybody can be president is really the message of the book. And so this really builds on this idea of improved self-regulation of children, setting goals and thinking about those goals and how they might reach those goals. It's also building on general knowledge of the world, which children are growing with in middle childhood. This book explicitly brings to light diversity in a very tangible way. I think it speaks for itself. These two books don't really necessarily bring in diversity, other than this book is going to have diversity presented in child's experiences. Some of the concepts and ideas maybe are a little old-fashioned, so that will play into the cultural awareness of this book. These are very traditional American scary stories, and so you may see some difference in children's exposures, especially from other countries or our first or second generation immigrants, as they may not have that same kind of family understanding and Velcro to apply. So the diversity here is a little different because it's fictitious in a different way than this. The Sidewalkins is fictitious. So 3 examples of literature in middle childhood.